Hi, in today's video we're going to look at the steps that it takes to add an auxiliary input jack to your NuTone master station so you can plug in an external music source such as your smartphone or a tablet or an iPod or a satellite radio receiver. These are all things that are easy to add to your system, and it'll make your system more usable. So let's take a quick look at what you'll need to do this. You'll need some tools plus the audio jack. So this is a miniature audio input jack that we make up here in our shop, and it consists of the audio input jack with a specially attached audio cable which has an RCA plug at the other end. You're also going to need a certain type of drill bit to drill the hole in the faceplate and do it properly so you don't damage or ruin your faceplate. You'll need either a cordless drill or an electric drill, and a little pair of needle nose pliers comes in handy also. First, I'm going to show you the individual parts of what you need and talk about each of them, and then I'll show you how to do the actual installation. This is a specially made audio input cable assembly that we make up here in the shop. We buy these bulk miniature audio input jacks, and then we also buy pre-made audio cable. Pre-made cables usually have an RCA or some other type of connector already attached when they were manufactured on one end of the cable. I prefer this type because making up RCA ends is a lot of extra work, and these kind of cables are relatively inexpensive nowadays, so there's really no reason to buy all the bits and pieces and make up your own. It's important to use audio cable as opposed to regular wire. Audio cable has a grounding shield as the outer layer and a signal wire in the center of the cable. This helps protect the signal as it travels through the cable so it doesn't pick up outside interference which would affect the quality of the sound. Now let's look at this little audio input jack because this is an important part of what you're going to be doing. One thing to consider when choosing an audio input jack or constructing an audio input jack is that your NuTone Intercom system is a monaural system. Monaural simply means that unlike stereo, which has right and left channels, a monaural system has right and left channels mixed together inside the equipment, and both channels play through a single speaker in each location, just like your NuTone Intercom system. Monaural audio jacks are impossible to find nowadays because it's an older idea and it's not used commonly anymore. The correct choice is to buy a miniature stereo input jack, and that's what this is. Stereo jacks simply mean that there's a common ground connection on one side of the jack, and then the other two connections would typically be used for the right channel input and the left channel input. The reason we use this type of jack is that it's very easy to turn the jack from a stereo jack into a mono jack by the way the audio cable is connected to the tabs on the jack. Since the audio cable contains a shielded ground wire, it's connected to the common terminal on the side of the jack, and if this were a stereo audio cable, it would contain two cores, one for the right and one for the left. In this case, it only contains one wire, and that wire is simply soldered between the right input tab and the left input tab, thereby mixing those two signals that come from the external device into the single wire, which is then fed into your system. So effectively, we've converted this stereo input jack into a mono input jack by the way the wire is attached. There are a few physical considerations on how the jack is going to be mounted on your master station. One of the considerations is the length of the threaded portion of the jack, which will protrude through a hole that you're going to drill in the faceplate. These threads have an outside diameter of 5.8 millimeters, so you'll need a hole that's slightly larger than that. However, on the jack, there is also a small shoulder molded into the black plastic body of the jack, and that has to be taken into consideration when drilling the hole also. The other consideration is the length of the threaded portion of the jack. The threaded length is 3.5 millimeters long, which is often the same thickness as the plastic in the faceplate of your NuTone Master Station. In many cases, the hole has to be drilled large enough to allow the shoulder of the jack to fit inside the hole also, which gives you an additional amount of length which will protrude through the hole, so you can put the capture nut on the outside and hold the jack to the faceplate. This seems a little complicated, but when I show you how to actually install the jack, it'll become more apparent. Now let's look at the drill bit you're going to use to drill the hole through the faceplate for the external audio jack. I prefer to use a stepped drill bit. This type of bit is designed to drill precisely sized holes at each step on the bit, which gives you a lot of control over the size of the hole. It also drills very clean and straight holes. This is better to use in comparison to a standard twist drill bit. The problem with this type of bit is the ferrules in the bit tend to grab the plastic as you drill the hole, and they'll get caught inside the hole on the plastic, and it'll want to pull itself into the set. That usually means that your hole, the size of your hole, isn't very precise, and also since you're working on a master station that's fully assembled, you run the risk of drilling into a circuit board or some other part of the set. So this is not a good choice to buy. You should buy a step drill bit. I like the Milwaukee brand bits. They're clearly marked on the drill bit for each size of hole that they're going to drill. There's also a guide on the back that shows the dimension of the hole for each step. These are commonly available. I picked this one up at the home center this morning for this video. They cost about $20. It's a good investment. They drill really good holes, and you'll find other uses for it also. To go along with your new stepped drill bit, you also need a drill. I'm going to use my DeWalt cordless drill. Any kind of cordless drill will work. If you have an electric drill, that will work fine. If you're still old school and you have manual drills, if you do it carefully, I'm sure that will work fine for you also. Now let's look at our example master station, and I'm going to show you how to go ahead and install the external audio jack. For our example today, we're going to be installing the external audio jack on a NuTone IMA 4406 master station. Although you may be considering doing this project on a different model, the fundamental steps are the same. The biggest variation will be from model to model is where the jack is going to be placed and the thickness of the plastic faceplate that you're going to be drilling the hole in. Simply, it comes down to the earlier models, the sets that were made in the 70s and 80s. The faceplate plastic tends to be thinner than on the models that were made in the 90s and 2000s. However, it's not really that much of an issue. It's just a matter of choosing the right location, drilling the correct size hole, and doing all of this carefully so you don't damage your master station. So let's flip this over and look at the back and pick a spot to install the audio jack. One consideration on where you install the audio jack is ease of use, and that will come down to where is your master station installed and what type of access do you have to plug an external cable into the jack. In most cases on a 4406, I prefer to install the jack in this lower right hand corner because on the inside of the set there's a lot of room for it. Your situation might be different. If your master station was installed where it's close up against the wall and you can't get to this side to plug a cable in easily, you may need to choose another spot. I don't recommend that you try to drill and mount it through the face of the unit. There's too much on the back of the faceplate that would have to be dismantled, and you're not going to really have enough room. So choosing a location is what works best for access to plug into the jack and also what type of space is available on the back of the unit. Here we're looking at the back of the 4406 master station, and it's sitting the right way around. This is the top and this is the bottom. So if we look at the space that's available, there's some obvious spots. This area, you have a lot of open space. However, this is also the back of the CD player assembly, and these are the hinges for the doors. So you would want to stay out of this area because it may interfere with the door operation. However, you do have this area here in the top and on the side. However, in the top there are these reinforcing fins on the back of the faceplate, so you have to work around those. In the bottom, You also have the reinforcing fins. However, there it seems as if it's a better choice. This is where I normally like to mount it. So it could go here. It could go on the bottom also. You have to take into consideration that on the bottom of the faceplate there are the two doors that open up, so there are little hinge areas here which you have to stay away from. If you look on the right hand side, you have a small spot here that is available. That's not a bad spot. Other than that, you don't have too much available. Up in this area, you have the battery, which is in the way. Maybe here would work out if there's no other choice. When you get into this area, there's too much going on and there isn't enough room. Same is true along the bottom. So this would be one option, perhaps here. I prefer down here, or right here would be okay also. This is always my first choice down here. This is where we're going to install the jack in this example today. Here we're looking at the spot where we're going to install the external audio jack. This would be in the lower right hand corner of the faceplate that I pointed out earlier. It does have these reinforcing angle pieces that are molded into the faceplate, so we need to stay in the middle of those. You certainly don't want to drill your hole and then have the jack end up halfway on the reinforcing angle and then it won't fit through the hole properly. So what we want to do is we want to be in the middle of the blank spot. This is the best way to do this. One thing I should point out is if your 4406 system has an expansion kit, that means that this area will have a circuit board that was added into it. If you have an expansion kit in your master station, this is not a good spot to put the jack. You would need to move it up to the top corner that we looked at earlier. The circuit board sits on these little standoffs and it doesn't allow very much room for the jack to be mounted, and you also are drilling directly into an area that has a circuit board, which I don't recommend. So proceed with caution, I guess, is the rule. So now since we know where we're going to put the jack, it's going to be about right here. Another consideration is when you drill the hole, you don't want to be right on the edge of the faceplate. You want to be down far enough so the body of the jack, when it's inserted through the hole, will rest up against the inside of the plastic of the faceplate, which makes it a strong mount, so when you plug the cable in and out, the jack isn't coming loose all the time. Now we're going to get ready to drill. Now I've put my step drill bit in my cordless drill. We know where we're going to mount the jack, which will be about right here, so now we're going to drill the hole. I'm making sure that I'm drilling in the center of the two diagonal supports inside the faceplate, and I'm slightly above center in the depth of the faceplate because that's where I normally do it. And we're going to proceed slowly and we're going to drill the first 5 steps of the drill bit. It's good to remove the plastic that comes out of the hole as you drill it. That's the 3rd step. And now the 4th. And that's the 5th step. The 5th step on this particular drill bit is a 1/4 inch size hole, which is on the information sheet that came with the bit. And you can see that the hole is now large enough for the threaded portion of the audio jack to fit through the hole. But one consideration is, since the faceplate of a 4406 master station is approximately 3.5 millimeters thick, and the threaded portion of the audio jack, this part right here that the capture nut's going to go on, is only 3.45 millimeters long, it doesn't really protrude through the faceplate enough to allow the little capture nut to be threaded on sufficiently to hold the jack in place. If you try really hard, you might get it on the first turn of threads, but that's certainly not enough. So what do we do about that? One consideration is you can't always just drill a bigger hole, because the hole has to be smaller than the capture nut. Otherwise, it'll just fall through the hole and the jack will fall out all the time. So that's not a good way to go. So this is the way I like to do it. I'm going to take the drill bit out of the drill. And remember before we talked about how there's a small shoulder that's molded into the black plastic body of the audio jack. What we need to do is we need to enlarge the inside of the hole so that the shoulder will fit through the hole, and that'll give us the extra length that we need all together so we can put the capture nut on. The way I like to do this, and what works best on most sets, is you can do this by hand. These bits are very sharp and the plastic's rather soft, so if you insert it on the inside of the hole and you simply turn it with your fingers, you can cut or drill a partial part of the way through the hole, and we'll do that a little more. And what you're doing is you're making what would be called a chamfer. A chamfer is simply a hole or beveled area that's slightly larger on one side than the other. And we'll do that just a little more. This is one of those tasks that slow and steady wins the race. There's no reason to be in a hurry. The difference between hurrying and taking your time is probably about a minute. So it's not worth hurrying on. Here we have our pre-made or our shop-made auxiliary input jack and audio cable assembly. And I'm simply going to insert that through the hole that we drilled. And I'm going to take the capture nut and I'm going to thread it onto the threaded portion of the jack. And you can see, even it being just finger tight, the end of the threaded portion is nearly flush with the capture nut. And then take your small needle nose pliers while holding the body of the jack on the inside so it doesn't turn, and simply tighten the nut down a little bit so it stays in place. That's all there is to mounting the jack. It's actually fairly easy. The next step will be to route the cable away from anything inside the set that it could interfere with, like the hinges on the CD player door, and you're going to route it around to the auxiliary input jack that's on your master station. Where those jacks are vary from model to model, so I'm not actually going to show you how to do that. The best thing to do is get the installation instructions for your model, and it'll show where the audio input jacks are, or you can look on our website. There's lots of pictures about that, and you should be able to find an example of a picture that shows where the jacks for your model are located. So this is all that you need to do. One more thing about the stepped drill bit. They come in different sizes and different shapes for different types of holes. The one we use is a Milwaukee. It's referred to on the label as a step drill bit number 1. They come in different sizes. This bit will drill a hole from 1/8 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch, and it does it in 1/32 of an inch stepped sizes. This is another example. I don't know what brand this is. This is something I keep in the truck. This is really for drilling larger holes. And if we look on the markings inside the bit, it looks like it drills from 1/4 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch, and it seems as if it does it in 1/16 of an inch steps. I don't recommend something like this. The problem with this is the smallest size hole is too close to the size of hole you actually want to drill here, and also the size of the steps are too large and it doesn't give you a lot of control, and it's too easy to drill the hole too big. So a bit with smaller increments in steps and a smaller size to begin with, the smallest size is 1/8 of an inch, is a better choice. So that's all there is to installing an external audio jack on your master station. The jack assemblies that we sell, you can order from us, And we also have what we call our do-it-yourself installation kit. In the do-it-yourself installation kit, we'll send you the pre-made audio jack cable assembly, and we'll also send you a step drill bit just like this. You don't get to keep the drill bit. Along with the kit, there'll be a prepaid mailing label, and once you drill the hole and mount your jack and you're done with the drill bit, you have to send it back to us. So that way we can send it to another customer so they can install a jack on their set also. So you can do it that way, or you can go down to the home improvement or hardware store and buy a drill bit of your own. Either way works fine. If you found this video to be helpful, please like it on our YouTube channel. If you think this video would be helpful to other people, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribing to our YouTube channel means that our videos show up higher in search results and more people will find our videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time.